So we're going to introduce first right here to my immediate left, Mark Chapman. Mark is the president of Keller Andrew Marketing here in Los Angeles. And they're an agency that works for all kinds of different brands. Also do a lot of SEO and PPC ads. And then to my left is Stephanie Nordstrom, who is the head of social for Fender Instruments. That, of course, is Fender guitars, amps, and ukuleles, and such. And we're very happy to have her. So, do a quick introduction on yourself and what you do and how you do it. Mark, take it away.
Great, well, thanks so much. So my name is Mark. I own a boutique agency, a really small agency. It's myself and 4 team members. And our focus is on small businesses, medium-sized businesses that don't have a budget for a paid ad specialist in-house, but they do have a budget to advertise. And so they're kind of in that in-between space where maybe they're not a solopreneur, but they have a business that needs to advertise. So that's kind of our space we work in. Just by chance and default, we have a lot of wedding industry clients, probably about 35 to 40% of our clients in the wedding industry, and then a whole bunch of other different types of clients on the other side for lead generation and product sales using, and our whole focus actually is paid platforms like Google Ads and Facebook Ads.
Cool. Stephanie?
Yep, I'm Stephanie. I have been the head of social media at Fender for just under 3 years now. Prior to that, I came from PR agency world and was always a social media person at PR agencies. And at Fender, we've been one of the top manufacturers of guitars, basses, amps, ukuleles. We also make harmonicas and a couple of other things. But we've had a pretty built-in audience over the years. Everybody was just kind of known to go to Fender, but music is changing. Electronic music is big. The rock gods are not the thing anymore, and so people are using guitar in different ways, and so we are using marketing and using paid social media to reach new audiences. We just released a new platform called Fender Play that actually teaches you how to play guitar, and that requires us to market to people who don't already play, which is a new audience for us. So.
Cool. There you go. All right, let's jump in. And I got one big question I think is on everybody's mind. I know this is very important. I want to know what's going on with the Dodgers offense and what is Yasmani Grandal in the postseason. Mark, what do you think? I'm kidding, of course. So let's do another quick poll real quick. Platforms. Show of hands, who is doing most of their paid advertising on Facebook? Okay, Instagram? You? How about YouTube? No? Snapchat? No, I forgot about Snapchat, didn't I? How about Twitter? No?
There's one.
All right, so it looks like we got a Facebook, Instagram kind of crowd. Okay, that's all right. We still like it. So, Mark, you've got a lot of experience. You've done a lot of different things and you've done a lot of different programs. Tell us about one instance that you have, one campaign you ran where you learned something. It was either a great successful campaign or it may have not even been a big success, but you actually learned a big lesson from it. Tell us about at least one instance just to get us started.
Yeah, I'll kind of use a client example. They're a wedding venue in Houston, in the greater Houston area in Texas, and I'll share this quick story of who they are and why they use paid ads and what ended up with us. They're a wedding venue. They've been around for 10 years. The owners are like sweet as pie, the nicest people in the world. And they had spent a lot of money like doing networking in the local community and also advertising on websites like The Knot and Wedding Wire, which are big industry sites for the wedding industry, which have done a great job in a lot of ways for bringing brides and grooms to place to see lots of many vendors all at once. But they were struggling to go beyond having 4 or 5 weddings a month at their venue, and they came to us and they're like, we need to figure out how to get more leads, more brides and grooms. So we got them set up with a Google Ads campaign because we know that brides and grooms are searching on Google for wedding venues and they're looking at what their options are. And we also set them up with Facebook ads to remarket to those brides and grooms who have been to their website, and also use Facebook demographic targeting to reach people who are engaged, or at least have said they're engaged, and to show pictures of the venue, and show video tours of the venue and things like that. And by employing a paid ad campaign, it literally changed their lives. Like, they love me so much, love us so much, not because we did anything special, but because we knew we did what was right, and we use those platforms well to drive leads to their business. And they went from having 4 weddings a month to having 12 weddings a month. And their minimum wedding cost is about $10,000 to rent their venue. So the $5,000, $6,000 a month they spend on ads in our services is nothing compared to what they get in return. And so the big lesson, the big takeaway was using the platforms to reach the right people at the right time. And we'll go into segmented audiences maybe in the buyer's journey later on. But the lesson is that there's a lot of different places out there for businesses to spend their money. And when it's done correctly on the right platform, the results can be incredible.
That's a great ROI.
I'm just excited about it.
Yeah, sure. Stephanie, your turn. What do you got?
I think one of the big lessons learned was about moderating your ads and keeping an eye on the comments. We, like I mentioned, launched Fender Play, and we used somebody who was actually learning on Fender Play in an ad because they just had a really great testimonial, and none of us noticed that he was wearing these really expensive Yeezy shoes. It didn't seem like a big deal to us, but as soon as we started serving the ads, everybody who saw it was just kind of making fun of his shoes and commenting on his shoes. And so next thing you know, you wake up the next day and there's a whole commentary bashing this guy's shoes. And it was really a lesson in making sure that you've got an eye on that conversation in the comment field, because we wanted that conversation to be about how excited they were to learn guitar, and instead it was all about making fun of this guy's shoes. So keep an eye on it.
How'd you go ahead and redirect it? How'd you guide it back to where you wanted it to be?
We had to go in and hide a lot of those comments. We ended up relaunching the ad and moderating it pretty closely from the very beginning.
Opt out the shoes.
Yeah, and now we're really conscious of when we're using everyday people and we're not picking out their outfits and styling them exactly, that we've got to just be conscious of those little details. And there's always going to be something that you don't think of, or that you're not going to think is a trigger for something, but just something to be mindful of.
Yeah. Check your copy, check your photos, things like that. So Mark, you talked a little bit about incorporating PPC ad with your Facebook ads. Let's talk a little bit about how you incorporate them together. How do they work together? Because a lot of people may or may not know, search and social are very unrelated, and they can work hand in hand. They don't work in a vacuum. Talk a little bit, if you would, about how you incorporate them and how they incorporate together. How does one complement the other?
Yeah, and when you say PPC, you kind of basically mean Google Ads, right? So let's use that example.
Sure.
Yeah, is that okay? So Google Ads, people, take a step back. The two platforms, let's compare Google and Facebook, are so different. There's a user intent on Google that doesn't exist on Facebook. When someone goes to Google, they're looking for a solution to their problem, looking for an answer to their question. Sometimes they're looking for a business to do business with, and they're just so much further in their brain and their heart in that buyer's journey than someone who's on Facebook kind of looking through what their friends did last weekend. And so, prefacing that Google and Facebook are so different, both have paid opportunities. What we do for our clients is we always recommend that they start with a Google Ads campaign and they take advantage of people who are searching for the solution that they offer, whatever their business is. And here we are at the awareness level. People are becoming aware of their business from Google Ads. We're tracking them when they come to the website. And then we're employing remarketing a lot of times with Facebook ads and saying, hey, Facebook, these people have been to the website. Maybe they've taken this certain action, or maybe they belong on this email list. And we're showing them follow-up ads to continue nurturing that lead. Because we know not many people are clicking from Facebook either to purchase and buy the product, because that's not their intent at the time. But think about, we'll go back to that wedding venue example, how robust the imagery and the videos are on Facebook for something like a wedding venue, to tour the wedding venue without even ever having to go there. So we're using the two platforms and what they offer in conjunction to nurture those leads. And eventually we're, of course, able to track leads and sales back to the campaigns.
All right, so the Google ad is kind of what baits them a little bit, gets them interested, and then you're coming back with that targeted Facebook ad.
Yep, it's the first handshake or first date.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Stephanie, are you doing any PPC ads in conjunction with your Google, or excuse me, your social ads?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of that with our Fender Play, and then we've also got some lower cost items like shirts and straps and strings, and so we're doing a little bit of PPC ads there. But a lot of our ads, because guitars can be pretty expensive, are kind of on the top of funnel awareness level, and so it's a lot of just making sure people know about them.
Yeah, and you incorporate an email strategy with it as well. I know because I get them all.
Yes.
So we didn't ask you guys, what are your favorite platforms, or what are your most effective platforms to do your ads? Stephanie, why don't you go first?
I think Instagram is definitely a big one because our audience is naturally a very creative audience, so they naturally lean toward people who are on Instagram. And then YouTube is another big one for us because when you're on YouTube, you're searching for how to play whatever song it is, how to change my strings on my guitar, how to get this sound that this artist makes, or even watching artist cover videos. So you're definitely in the mindset of learning something when you're on YouTube, so that's been pretty effective for us.
And you did some Snapchat ads at one time too, right?
Yeah, we've done a couple of Snapchat ads
How'd that
for
work?
a couple of our products that lean a little bit younger. We're actually just going to test a couple more for our Grace Vanderwall ukuleles, which just launched because they are a lower price point and they are targeting a much younger audience.
So you can't see some results, because I know when I said Snapchat, everybody kind of went, but they can't work if you have the right audience.
It's changed a lot over the last few months. I think even a year ago, there wasn't a lot of very good targeting data and not a lot of good tracking data. I think they just released a pixel at the very end of last year.
Oh, yeah.
So I wouldn't definitively say absolutely yes they work. I think we're still in testing mode to see how they do and being very particular about the products that we're testing there. We're not testing our $2,000 guitar ads on Snapchat.
And you're doing Facebook ads as well, right?
Yes.
Mark, what are your favorites?
So our agency is really small, and we actually do our own Facebook ads because we know our buyer persona very distinctly, exactly who they are. And one way that we use Facebook ads is we know our buyer personas, we put a little bit of demographic targeting, but we also got the opportunity to access an email list and got permission to an email list of about 20,000 small business owners of a particular category. And so with permission to use those emails, we have our own ad campaign that are targeting them and really doing what we do for our clients in terms of nurturing them. We have a little class set up online that people can watch the 30-minute presentation. So we use Facebook primarily to get leads for our own business. Yeah, that's my favorite.
What are some platforms that you would recommend people not use? Like, it's just, in your experience, it's not worth the time, it's not worth the money. Which one of those platforms it's just not worth it?
Not to put the Snapchat, like,
Your audience is different.
Yeah, for our audience, because they tend to have a much more limited budget, Snapchat is just too far out there so far. We've done a little bit with Twitter and LinkedIn, and those platforms are okay, but I'd still say like kind of ground zero is Facebook, Google, and Instagram, and then Twitter and LinkedIn. If you're saturating the market on Google, Facebook, and Instagram, then you have more budget, then go for Twitter and LinkedIn. LinkedIn, of course, is very B2B. It's not B2C. Don't even think about doing a B2C ad on LinkedIn. There's a question back there.
Yeah, Mark, you're running a lot of Google ads in a very competitive space when you're dealing with weddings because the stakes are so high, the bidding has got to be relatively expensive. What type of tools are you using to find the proper keywords to bring that cost per click down for the target advertising?
Yeah, so part of our onboarding process with clients in that case is asking them what makes their venue unique. And we have a lot of wedding venue clients, so we've seen a lot of data. We actually can access the data ourselves of what works and what doesn't work in the past. And it was a learning process. You know, wedding venue, that keyword by itself is just way too broad. But for the people in Houston, their wedding venue is very rustic, and actually people are looking for a rustic wedding venue. So we've got what we call a single keyword experience where someone types in rustic wedding venue, our client's ad says rustic wedding venue, and they click to a landing page about, it literally says rustic wedding venue. So that person who used that long tail keyword, we'll call it, for industry speak, is led down a path that's very specific.
And then are you guiding the clients to put in more SEO juice within their site to get more organic reach as well, or is it just purely a paid mechanism right now?
Most of our clients don't do organic SEO by the nature of how Google has put ads at such a priority, especially on mobile devices. The first 4 results you see on your mobile device is typically an ad, unless it's like a map-based search. And being that their small business is limited budget, they don't do a lot of SEO because they can't see the results as fast as they can as a plug-and-play paid platform.
Stephanie, platforms you say just, nah, don't bother?
You know, I would have probably said Snapchat, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. And reason for that is because I don't know for sure that it works. I will say that about a year ago, before the user base for Snapchat really dropped, we were running a really great organic Snapchat channel, and we were able to actually drive our users to go into stores and snap us back videos of them playing certain guitars, and we were able to get, you know, 10,000 opens and, you know, a couple hundred people actually snapping us videos of them doing something. So it was really powerful for us to actually move people into action. I don't know that that's going to happen now. This ad set that we're launching with them is just a test. But I will say that on the organic side, we are not getting that level of engagement anymore. We're not getting that level of opens anymore at all.
So you're talking a little bit about measuring, and you're talking about your metrics, and I was asking a little bit about metrics. Let's talk a little bit about that big important thing about measurement and insights. How do you currently measure and rank your ad performance? What are the big ROI metrics that you're looking for? Which one's the most important to you, and how are you measuring them, and what are you measuring them against?
I think it's not a one answer for all of those.
Sure.
I think it depends on what the product is and what the goal of the ad was. And typically, if we're gonna do an ad campaign around a specific product, we've got awareness-based ads at the very top of the funnel, where the KPI for that is engagement and eyeballs, because we just want people to know about the product. And then if we're doing middle funnel, then we'll probably measure our success based on clicks if we're actually driving people to the website to learn more about it, or they're spending time actually watching the video, so maybe watch time on a video. And then if we're at the very bottom of the funnel and it's a subscription for Vendor Play, or it's a pretty low cost item that we think people will just click over and buy online pretty quickly, then it's all the way down to conversion.
How are you measuring it? Are you just going straight out of like Facebook Analytics, for example? Are you using a third-party tool? How do you measure it?
All of the above. We've got, you know, what's native to the platforms. We've got pixels that we're installing on our sites. We're using Google Analytics, and then actually tracking over into all of our conversion tools. And a lot of times they don't agree, so it's a lot of forensic matching it all up and getting us to a point where we kind of know what the answer is.
And your model is interesting because you're not so much direct to consumer. You're more about building the awareness, and then you're trying to get them to do it to the retailers.
Yeah.
To get, that's where the sale comes in. So how do you kind of track and measure that kind of success?
Yeah, so a win for us is we have pretty frequent sales calls with our, you know, we work with a lot of, Guitar Center, Sam Ash, a lot of the big retailers, but then we also work with a lot of independent retailers who'll have, you know, a store in Kansas City, and then there will be somebody else who has a store in Boston. So we do regular calls with them, and when they say on the calls that somebody came in because they saw an ad on Facebook, that's when we know that we did our job.
And do you direct any co-op advertising dollars with your retail partners, or do you manage the whole paid social campaign?
We're managing all of them on our own. A lot of our retail partners will run their own ads as well. We haven't done a lot of co-op with them just because we have so many independents that it'd be really tough to be fair to all of them, and we try to really not favor one retailer over another. But we do consult with them on a regular basis. We you know, if they ever have any questions, we use our team as a resource. It's there to help them.
If you looked at being a bit more formal, like a brand monitor or some methodology that would give you awareness lift or beyond
Oh yeah,
that,
like a brand lift study with a couple of, yeah, we've looked into doing a couple of brand lift studies. I know that YouTube offers some, Facebook offers some, so that's definitely on our radar and something that we'll probably do in the near future. I don't have
and
exact results.
would you plan to do it at a regular interval to be able to track?
Probably not, because right now our ads are so new product focused, so it'd be tough to compare one quarter to the previous quarter because we've launched different products at those times. But we might do them more on a campaign specific basis to see if there's a lift in awareness on a new product.
Mark, what about you? How are you measuring success?
Yes.
What do you measure?
So just kind of the same way, success isn't measured the same for every client, but the SMB world is about sales. It means Like, if you don't provide sales leads to your clients, they don't stay your clients. So there are different, of course, campaigns we create at the awareness, consideration, decision level stages, but we do use Google Analytics to track leads, to track sales and Shopify products, for example. And we also, kind of the same as you, like we compare to the Facebook data, but it doesn't always match up. And that can be really frustrating when answering to clients or answering to people you have to report to. Like, why don't they match up? There's a whole bunch of different reasons why they don't. But you can see big picture, and you can see that it is working or it isn't working when you're able to measure leads in Facebook ads and also follow it up with Google Analytics goals.
So how long, I know every situation is going to be a little bit different, but you see maybe an ad that's not working or underperforming. How, do you have a rule of thumb? How long do you let it go before we say, we got to either change this or pull the plug on it? How do you know when you've thrown enough money at it to know something needs to happen?
Yeah, so you can kind of get a gauge by the number of people that have seen the ad, the number of people that have responded to it. And click-through rate, I think, is a vanity metric because just because someone clicks on your ad doesn't mean that they actually took a valuable action. However, at this first stage, maybe that's a great way of measuring, should we turn this ad off or try something new? If you've had 2,000 or 3,000 people see your ad, and if not more than 5% have clicked on it, or maybe 4 or 5%, it probably means there's something better that can be communicated in that ad, or your audience targeting might need to change a little bit.
Yeah, okay. We were touching a little bit on testing, and we're kind of going down that path. So let's talk about testing. Let's start here. How important is testing in your ads?
It's essential. Without it,
You get that? We're gonna write that down?
Yeah.
Essential.
And can I spend a minute on the boost post button? So, yeah, okay. Boost post. You get to choose a couple little things you want to boost, but when you boost a post, you're not A/B testing, and it's almost, in some cases it's okay, but 99% of the time, don't push the boost post button because the Facebook ads platform allows you to create an ad, you can A/B test it, and you can get the results you want, and you can also learn what got you those results. So I feel like Facebook is taking $5 and $10 away from everyone here and there, and they're making a ton of money, and Mark Zuckerberg lives in this big beautiful house because of the boost post button.
And we don't need to make his house look big. So you don't recommend doing the boosted post?
I don't. It's like conversation number one I have with most people is like, are you
Just
boosting
don't do it.
posts? And they're like, yeah, I really did, I love it. I'm like, don't do it.
It's like on the crash table days, it's a sucker bet.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Oh, it's a sucker bet, a sucker bet.
Sucker bet.
Let's come up with that. Stephanie, testing, what do you think? How often do you do it? Important, yes, no?
It's really important. A lot of times we're testing variations in copy, or we're testing certain images, certain videos, certain messaging. So yeah, it's definitely really important for what we're doing. And a lot of times we'll do smaller tests at a smaller scale and then save a chunk of our budget to put behind whatever was performing the best.
Do you target different groups in your tests, or do you kind of test the same people, or same groups, same demographics?
It's case by case. We try to keep the variables down to a minimum so that we can actually get real learnings out of the test results. But depending on the product, we will test with different age ranges, different genders, different adjacent interests, things like that.
Do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Oh, I have a question. What's your strategy at moving people down in the sales funnel from awareness to conversion? Because I think a lot of clients are okay with awareness, but eventually they have to convert. And how do you take that audience that's based on awareness and then graduate them to a lower funnel conversion? Is there
Sure, yeah. We kind of vary the look and feel of our creative as you go further down the funnel. We are fortunate enough to have a product where we've got a lot of really cool artists that use it, and we've got really cool music, and it's pretty eye-catching. So for our awareness ads, we tend to stick with some of those really dynamic, catch your eye type of things, because that's what we want is your attention. But as we're moving further down the funnel, we know that you care less about how cool so-and-so artist looks playing the guitar, and now you want to learn a little bit more about the specs. So as we move them further down the funnel, we are educating them about the different features that are going to be more important to them. And then at the very bottom, now we're telling them about price. We're telling them about all those final selling points that will tip you over the edge. So I think our creative gets more and more transactional as you get further down the funnel and is more inspirational at the top.
That's a really perfect way to put it. And even in our small business world, I'll use the example of the wedding venue again, because it's really the same. It's inspirational in the beginning and then more serious as it goes on. So for us, like an awareness level campaign might include Google ads, or also might include Facebook ads that have a lot of imagery of the venue and maybe some of the value propositions that make it unique. And then we might follow up with a consideration campaign that has, hey, there's an upcoming open house that you can RSVP for, and if they click on that open house ad and they know they're interested, we can track them on the open house page, and then we hit them with a decision level campaign that says, we know you saw it doesn't say this, but we know they saw the images, watched the videos, they looked at the open house page, but maybe they didn't sign up, and so we'll remind them, hey, space is limited at the open house, it's 2 weeks away, and you need to RSVP now if you want to go. And then our KPI is that open house RSVP, but we've led them through that whole funnel of awareness and inspiration down through, hey, let's shake our hand, and let's go ahead and meet in real life.
Do you have like a specific percentage of your budget you would use for that first campaign versus funneling down? Do you sort of like take it per campaign, I guess?
I'd say for us, it is typically like 80-20 awareness to remarket. Well, if we break it down just to 2 stages, like awareness and remarketing, it can be like 80-20 because we're kind of doing some refinement in those remarketing campaigns, and we don't need to reach everyone. We just need to reach the right people.
Yeah, I think it varies for us depending on the product. If it's a brand new product that we've never launched before, we might spend a little more on the awareness side and then weight it a little bit lower on the actual conversion side. But a lot of times we're relaunching a guitar line with a few tweaks to it, and it's an electric guitar line that looks fairly similar to something that we've done before. So we might jump right into the specs further down the funnel for something like that.
So we danced around a little bit, talked about it, mentioned it. Let's talk about list segmentation, because that's obviously a very big part. Anybody who's done ads, you know, list segmentation and list targeting is very, it's a huge beast. Let's talk a little bit about how list segmentation, how does that play in your strategy? How big of it? Is it everything? Is it, what do you do with your list segmentation? How many directions do you go? Where do you start with it? 500 words or less.
Okay. List segmentation for us is pretty simple. With small businesses, if they have an email list, it's so powerful, and you can segment those people like how well they know your business. Is it a lack of a better way to say it? Like, is it someone who's really excited about your business, or is it like a mother with a daughter who doesn't know you exist? And so you can create ads for different people in those lists. And you're is that kind of answering the question?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. And so
I
it's
was
just,
kidding about the 500 words or less.
yeah, I just totally in my ums and so's. Okay. But yeah, so creating a specific message for each list or each audience is another way to put it, because it isn't just about email lists, it can be about audience segmentation and a specific message to the right people depending on where they're at in your sales funnel in relationship to your business. I'm sorry that's so broad, but it's just a matter of considering and putting yourself in their shoes. How well do they know you, and what message do they need to hear?
Maybe to get to maybe what you were trying to get to is that would you start broad, let's say a new client, they give you your assumption of who the client is with your audit up front, you know, the briefing. Do you go large, broad, to as much as you can, and then you start reading the results and see where the engagement, and then start segmenting it that way? Is that one approach of getting to segments?
Yeah, it can be. Like, if the business doesn't really know much about their buyer persona, maybe they're new to market and they haven't done their research in other contexts before they get to us, going broad makes a lot of sense. But typically, in the onboarding process, when someone's thinking about setting up an ad campaign, there's a lot of questions we can ask to find out about their buyer persona, or find out what list assets they might have, if it's email lists in their MailChimp account, or something else, constant contact like that, so we can get to it a little bit more specifically than just throwing money into the wind.
What do you like better, the homegrown lists or the lists you can get out of Facebook, or combinations?
Typically an email list that you have of your own, of people you've interacted with, or maybe to the wedding venue, sorry. If they met people at a bridal show and they had people that sign up to like get information from them at the bridal show, like those are gold. Those are people who gave you their email address and they're ready to do business. There's nothing better than something like that. So the homegrown list is awesome.
Are you finding these days that Facebook is giving you a good look? Like if you're targeting through Facebook's group, you're saying, you know, these demographics, these people, are you finding these days that those are good lists still, or?
Yeah, actually, we actually talked about this on a call before tonight where we talked about how Facebook has, its algorithm has become a lot better at targeting people who take specific actions. You can create Facebook campaigns for video views or Facebook campaigns that you want to get people off of Facebook onto your website. It's called a traffic campaign. By letting Facebook do its thing, and it is providing these audiences, and it is providing these algorithms to target the right people a lot better than it did even a year or two ago.
Stephanie, list segmentation, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and we are constantly trying to get better at it, but a guitar player doesn't look the same across the board. If we've got a piece of ad creative that has a metal artist playing an electric guitar, that's not going to appeal to somebody who likes playing country on an acoustic. So there's so many different ways to cut a guitar player. Acoustic, electric, bass. We can't be serving a bass ad to somebody who plays guitar, or a guitar ad to somebody that plays bass. Genre specific is really important, and now we're starting to get even more sophisticated in why are you playing? We're learning that not everybody who plays guitar wants to be on stage and be a rock god. That's just, a lot of people start learning to play guitar because they find it relaxing and they, you know, just want to be able to get a song, and they have zero intention of ever playing in front of anybody else. It's just their own meditation. And so we're working on figuring out ways to target them and market to them and show the guitar in the environment where they would actually be using it.
Yeah, I just heard a recent number, correct me if I'm wrong, 1/4 of the guitar market is now women?
Oh, it's more than that. It's about 50% of
Is
new
it 50?
purchases.
Wow.
Yeah, new purchases.
Awesome.
I think Taylor Swift and
Yeah, oh yeah, thank you, Taylor. Not Taylor Guitars, by the way, Taylor Swift. Anyway. So, all right, new poll time. Get your arms ready. So, you've got targeting, your list targeting, versus ad copy and imagery. Which is more important? Who thinks your targeting is more important? Don't be shy. No wrong answer. Who thinks ad copy and imagery is more important? Okay, you're all. Okay, I don't know. Mark, what's more important?
True story, never been asked that question. But I'm gonna say ad copy and imagery because a great ad, I think it can convert people who aren't as close to your business. And if you've got a crappy ad and it's got spelling mistakes and the image is weird, like you can't convert people that are really close to your business. So I would say ad copy and imagery.
But what if you send a great looking ad to the wrong person?
That's what I mean. Like a great looking ad to the
Like you
wrong
send a
person.
wedding,
like,
you send a wedding ad to me?
you're right.
I think my girlfriend would love it,
But
I
Nick,
mean, no.
do you know anyone who's looking to get married? Could you hit the share button? I'm kidding. It's good.
That creative just won't convert.
That creative.
Once
Of
it's
course,
out, you
of
won't
course.
see it.
Yeah.
So,
It's a six. Stephanie, what do you think? What's your, what do you put more weight on?
I was gonna say targeting was more important because I was thinking that you can't sell a bass to a guitar player or a guitar player to a bass, but then I was thinking
But
about
you
my,
can.
yeah, that's true, those two cross over. But then I was thinking about the shoe example I gave you earlier, and that creative took away, even though we were targeting the person who wanted to learn to play guitar, they were so distracted by the shoes that it didn't work. So I guess I didn't really answer the question.
No, I mean, it is, it's kind of a, you know, it depends on who you are, you know, maybe for your industry, for the wedding industry, you know, that visual is gonna be a little bit better, but, you know, for a consumer product like a guitar, so I think it also, a lot of it has to do with where you're advertising. So, Instagram, obviously, very image heavy, and, you know, so you need to have a good creative. And your targeting is probably not gonna be it's not as easy, my experience, tell me I'm wrong. Targeting on Instagram is not as easy and precise as it is on something like Facebook.
It's hard to tell because the data is the same. And like the Facebook ads platform, you create your ads for Facebook and Instagram the same
Right.
place. So they don't really break it down to detail on each platform yet.
Yeah, where something like a PPC ad, like a Google ad, is a little bit more text heavy. It has a little bit more of a message.
Unless it's a shopping, shopping campaigns allow you to search for products, text ads.
So there's obviously there's different variables, so again, there's no real one right answer. John, you had a question?
So, yeah, this might be a stupid question, and I should know this maybe, but as far as geo, like targeting, okay, putting in your criteria, specifically for that on Facebook, is it better to go broad, like North America, or to go specific, like individual towns and markets?
I'll go first. Okay. So obviously, if you're a location-based business, you
Well,
don't-
it's not. Okay,
correct. So you're a
it's
nationwide
product,
business.
okay,
Yeah.
it's just a product, okay?
Yeah.
So, do you
I know
go-
exactly what your question is. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
So just make sure we save time for other questions. We have worked with high-end fashion clients who think that their ideal customer lives in New York or Los Angeles, and I don't want to show ads anywhere else because nobody else is going to buy my products. It doesn't work that way. Those high-end buyers are in small towns as well. They're just not maybe as many in the same place. And so we found by allowing Facebook's algorithm to do its thing and tell and reach people that we have told it to reach based on what we want it to do, that nationwide tends to be better than like specific geographic targeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with that. And if you're thinking about, I think my first instinct when you think about geo-targeting is I'm gonna target places that I know have a really great guitar shop in their town, and I'm gonna drive people there. But we ran a couple of UGC contests last year and early this year where we asked people to go to their closest guitar shop and send us back videos of them playing a certain guitar line. And we had people that drove 2 hours to go to their closest guitar shop and knew exactly, I had a kid in Alaska drive 2 hours to his guitar shop to send us back a video, and I would have never thought to target him to go into a store. I would have thought he's never going to do that. But he did, and he won. Randomly selected, yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect segue into the next question I was going to talk about, is about user-generated content. Everybody understand what user-generated content is? So, Steph, you just talked about how you guys ran a campaign, you're asking people to post videos. Talk a little bit about how you incorporate that into your strategy. I know that's a big deal for you.
Yeah, it's something that we've been doing a lot more of and experimenting with a lot of different types of UGC. So with guitar, you're naturally talking to an audience that is higher than average creative. People who are using guitar for self-expression. And one of the first big UGC contests that we ran was last year, in the beginning of the year, and we asked people how they're original, because we were launching a guitar line called the American Original Series. And we just built a landing page where they could upload a file of any sort, a movie file, a PDF, a video. We got poems. We got, one guy did 13 original paintings of a Fender guitar. We got people that wrote their own rom-coms and filmed a rom-com, which was basically an ode to a guitar. We got poetry.
Wow.
We got the most amazing content, and we were able to take that content and cut it together so that we were able to showcase how loyal and how excited our fans were and kind of give it back to them. But then we were also able to take a lot of that content, we had it written in the rules that we own all the content that you submit, and we were able to use it as advertising, and it's basically the best testimonial you can have when you've got people loving your product so much that they're gonna write you poetry about it. So now we've started to do more and more contests themed around playing as something, or with a certain theme, everything from writing to performances to songwriting. It's just been a really useful tool to really take our ads to the next level.
I remember doing an ad several years ago for Smoothie King, and they ran a contest, and you could win a guitar signed by Kobe Calais, and it was submit a new jingle. It was a jingle contest, and we got like more than we could have imagined. Mark, you ever use any user-generated content?
So most small businesses, it's like not realistic to put the effort into creating a campaign to get user-generated content. However, I do have a tip or a trick. We did some ad testing with ads where the company we wrote the copy, but we also tested against an ad where a testimonial from Yelp was used. So a little bit of user-generated content in a way because it was a Yelp review. So we put that Yelp review text into the ad, and guess what? The results were incredible because it wasn't the company speaking the message to you. It was another person, and it was more believable, and it was more transparent, and it was verifiable on Yelp because you can go to Yelp and you can see it. So in a way, for our world, user-generated content in terms of testimonials as ad copy has been incredible.
That's a good one. That was it. We were talking about that. That's a new one I've never heard, was actually a testimonial that's really cool. So that kind of leads into where I want to go from here. Influencers. Stephanie, I imagine you guys are all about them because your influencers are literally rock stars.
Yeah, that's true.
And I imagine it's pretty easy. I mean, you could stick a picture of Jimi Hendrix up there and done, right? You're going to get 1 million likes and shares. What about other influencers? How often do you use them? I mean, I know sorry, that's the question. You use them a lot. What are you doing? What's your strategy around using influencers for your ads?
Yeah, I mean, we work with a range of influencers. Everybody from Flea, it's his birthday today.
Better be post.
He's got a signature base, so he appears in the ads for his own signature products. But then we'll also work with a lot of YouTube cover artists and people who are reviewing different guitars and amps, and we'll send them products that are coming out that they are able to review, and then they're usually all for it if we say, hey, we'd like to boost your YouTube video, we want to use it for pre-roll, or we want to drive people there. Another great way to use influencer content is through native advertising. If you're working with like a Outbrain or a Nativo, where you can take their influencer content and treat it like news content that appears on a news site. And then we're also working with a lot of what the trendy term right now is micro-influencers, so people with smaller followings but are really motivated. And this has been really helpful for us in launching our Fender Play product, where we're really needing to reach outside of our existing audience. And so we're trying to reach people who don't already play guitar. So working with these micro-influencers who have their own loyal fan bases that are very different from our own has been really, really helpful.
If you had a tip or suggestion for working with influencers, what would it be?
I would say really think through your do's and don'ts for the content that you want them to post. If you can be as directive and clear about what you want in the content that they're going to create, you're going to get something that you're much happier with. Even down to things that you would think are common sense. These are people who are not professional actors or advertisers and don't think of a lot of things that you might. For example, we often have to say, can you not put a competitor's amplifier or a competitor's guitar in it? But it's pretty natural. I mean, a lot of people who play guitar play all different brands of guitar. I just don't want to be putting paid dollars behind boosting our competitors' product.
Yeah. Mark, influencers?
I don't have too much experience with influencers. Small businesses.
Not really the answer I was looking for.
I know. What's next?
I can give you another influencer tip from
Please do.
from my agency world.
So much we have.
And it will be not guitar-based. So when I was working at PR agencies, a lot of our clients were things like hot dog brands or food brands. Hershey's was one of my clients for a long time. And as prescriptive as you want to be with an influencer, don't ever write them a script. Because the beauty of working with an influencer is they know their audience so well, and they know their humor, and they know what they're going to respond to. So you want them to have creative control and make sure that everything that they're creating is authentic as possible. Otherwise, it's just going to completely backfire on you, and it's going to look like you forced that influencer to do exactly what you told them to do, and everybody will say they're selling out.
So, yes, it sounds like authenticity is really kind of the key there. I mean, not just like what you just said, and then going back to what Mark was saying about testimonials. I mean, that's a real authentic voice of somebody. that sounds like that can be like the most powerful kind of copy material you can be putting into an ad versus beating your head against the creative table trying to come up with copy and just let your audience be your voice in your ad.
And there's so much data available to us in these platforms,
Sure.
but at the end of the day, it's human-to-human interaction, and we forget that so easily. And so, just like the word authenticity you said is so important, and whatever you can bring authenticity to in your ad copy or in your list of influencers, like that's the goal. Be human, be authentic.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to be sold to. Tell me what's going on.
And if you look at how people are using social media, like Facebook, you're going on there to connect with your friends, to look at the news, to look at what's going on in the world. You're not going on there to be advertised to. So if the ads can fit in with the rest of that content, people are more receptive to it.
Yeah. So I gotta get in, oh, sorry, is there a question? Oh, it's good. No,
I
go
was
ahead.
just curious about the influencers. A lot of influencers are asking for upfront fees and compensation and consideration. Do you feel something like a pay for performance clause in the contract? You know, like if you deliver 10,000 views, you get this tier. Something like that.
So I can answer that for the clients that I used to work for in the agency world where it was a hot dog. Yeah, we had to pay you to post about it because nobody is super excited about posting about a hot dog. But for Fender, I have a little bit of a different answer because our products are higher price point. So if I tell you I'll give you $1,000 guitar, you know, your response is a little bit different, and we're able to use that as a little bit of a vetting process because we'll trade people product and work with influencers who are genuinely so excited that they'll work for product. So their content is going to be more authentic. And yeah, sometimes depending on who it is or you know what the price point is, we might add a small fee onto that, but we're never going to pay them the fees that I was paying when I was representing lower
because some of
cost
these
brands.
fees are like, you know, like
Yeah.
how are we going to justify a $5,000 Instagram post or anything?
Yeah, exactly. And we're not doing that with Fender because that's our filter for whether or not you actually want to work with us.
That's a bummer, because I was gonna say, I'll work for it. Bummer. Oh. Any other question? Okay, so you mentioning views, I gotta throw this question out. This was from our third panelist, who unfortunately couldn't make it, but he came up with this when we were talking. I want to bring this up and throw this out there and get your feedback on it. So he says he had a client that was running a video ad, a Facebook video ad, but he was running it to India and Germany. Okay, and he saw they were doing this. He said, "What's going on? What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" What they were doing was they were running these ads there because it was very, very cheap. They were literally paying pennies per view in India and Germany. And the reason they were doing this was because they wanted to boost their number of views. So then when they came back and ran that video ad here in the States, it had all this nice number of views, which kind of makes it look a little bit more attractive. And it looks like people are watching this video already. What do you think of that strategy? Is that black hat? Is that sneaky? Is it clever?
Sneaky, right? And my first reaction was, well, it doesn't matter how many views you have if you have a crappy product in the end and nobody wants it. You have 100,000 views, nobody cares. And so I was like, no, that's terrible, don't do it. But then I think you had a different perspective, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I think, I agree, it's sneaky, and I don't know how much it's actually going to help them out, but there is some clout to having a lot of views on there, and I think I mentioned that we have pretty frequent calls with our retailers, and so if they see that there's genuine interest in a product and like views actually matter to them. Granted, I think it's a little bit sneaky to show views from people who are probably not actually going to buy the product, but I have heard of people who are actually looking at view counts and putting weight behind it.
I thought it was, I'm kind of with you, it's a little sneaky, but
I don't like it.
but it's not, it's
We just talked about authenticity.
That was actually, the video was actually directly uploaded to Facebook, or was a link to YouTube?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know that for 100% certainty, but it was a video ad, is what he said. It was a video ad. And he targeted it to India and Germany, where it was very inexpensive to get the clicks. and just to build his view count.
I think it's a great idea.
So then we ran it here in the States.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, so then we, yeah, so then
Black hat, black hat.
I'm gonna do it tonight.
The one that I heard of that was kind of sneaky like that and similar, but I think could maybe get you better results is I've heard of a brand taking an ad and retargeting it to people that they knew had already purchased or tried something. So those people would then comment and say, oh yeah, I tried it, it's awesome. And then push that ad to the people who haven't purchased yet. But that's actually authentic because those are real testimonials that you're getting from
yeah,
the industry.
there's that authenticity, yeah.
I just want to say, I came for tips and tricks. I think it's quite a genius, tip and trick. If you're doing it for sure strategy, like if you're trying to be sleazy and scam somebody, that's a key. But if you're doing it for strategy, I represent a lot of hotels and destinations. You don't want a restaurant shop that's empty. You want people in there. You want a hotel lobby that's full. So, I don't know how much money that is, but I think it's quite genius. At least you're showing a video that's got likes. I think it's pretty smart if you're not doing it to deceive somebody, like to see what mine is. As strategy goes, that's a pretty smart social strategy to get started.
I mean, there are tests out there that say, people are more likely to watch a video that has, 10,000 views versus 10. But it's the same video. It just has all those views. People, well, everybody else watch it, so I
When
guess I
was the
should
last
too.
time you walked into an empty restaurant?
That was good.
How much money are you really saving? Because if you're getting views for 6,000 cents, why do you need to target Germany and India?
Just because it was cheap and you could get a lot of views and maybe thought you couldn't get as many here. Look,
How do you score though? Also, I think you should focus on do some testing, see how much it costs.
Yeah,
Before
no.
going after audiences in different countries.
To be clear, this wasn't our panelist Mason who did this. It was his client who was doing this, and he saw they were doing this, and he went to them and said, "Whoa, why are you doing this?" And they told him that's why they were doing it, to get those cheap clicks.
There's another lesson there that's a little bit related. When you have a Facebook ad, for example, that you've been running for a long time, has a lot of likes, comments, and shares, but it's an evergreen ad you keep running, like those actually perform a whole lot better if you get one nailed down than if you have the exact same ad with no comments and no likes and no shares on it. There's something about other people who have seen it and liked it that lends credibility, no matter what the ad says, to people clicking on it and engaging with it. And so the big takeaway there is also relevant to Facebook likes and things.
So speaking of comments and likes and so forth on your ads, just kind of getting into the kind of hands-on practice of your ads and working with your ads. How much social listening do you do to your ads and commenting back on them? So you post this ad, it gets all kinds of engagements, it gets some comments and what have you. Do you do the response to that? Do you respond to those? How do you work with those?
Our particular setup, we don't do the response to that because we just focus on paid ads. So our clients typically have someone who's doing their social posts, their organic content on a regular basis. So those people tend to respond. Of course, we're always there to jump in, but it's not really like just a paid campaign manager's job. And it's a little bit gray though, because sometimes it is. I know it's a different situation for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we learned our lesson after that shoe incident, and so we put a team of people on there to eyeball. We had kind of a community Google Doc where we had a link to the posts that were getting the most impressions, so that we had somebody from the customer service team watching it, we had somebody from the social team watching it, somebody from the paid team or our agency watching it, and one of the things, and this is maybe a tip or a trick, one of the things that we really started doing was making sure that we're commenting on the positive comments, because that then pulls them up in the comment thread. So when we've got people expressing, I tried it and it works, then we are encouraging that and making sure that people see it. And I know from my own personal experience, I fall for Facebook ads and buy things that I'm served pretty frequently. And I usually only do it when I can see in the comments that people are saying, yeah, this actually worked for me.
So, and kind of continue on with the practice of your ad approval. So when you're creating ads, like you create ads for your clients all the time, what kind of approval process do you go through? Is it internal? Does the client just trust you, do what you want? What kind of a ad approval process do you go through?
Yeah, there's always at least 2 pairs of eyes on each ad internally before it ever gets to the client, because you don't ever want to misspell their business name or anything like that, of course, and then the client approves it. So there's 2 steps for us: internal, external, ready to roll.
So I'll just complete that process with our agency. So they do all their internal checking, send it to me. Then I route it to our creative team to make sure that everything is within brand guidelines and that we're using the assets that they've provided in the way that they should be used. Then I send it to our artist relations team if there's an artist in it to make sure that the artist knows that we're using them in an ad and that we're tagging the right pages and that we're depicting the artist in the way that they want to be depicted. And then our e-com team needs to look at it to make sure that we're sending to the right product description page. And then I usually will also route it to like international and just make sure that everybody internally is signed off on it. So.
Are you still selling the product by the time?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that the cycle's done, you're on to the next season. You missed the mark.
Christmas is over.
All right, so we're getting now kind of to the meat and potatoes part. So now we want to look for that insider advice. So what's something innovative, maybe outside the box perhaps, that is worth trying, worth doing, that nobody else is doing, that you found works well? What's that secret tip?
Trade secrets. I'm gonna think for a second, because I kind of used them already with testimonials.
Yeah, I kind of used a lot of them with testimonials
You guys are
too.
killing me. I can make it easier.
Yeah, I was going to tell you about the trick that I had heard that I hadn't personally tried, but retargeting to your loyal customers, if you know that they purchase a lot or they're really, really loyal, and getting them to comment first, because then when you share it outside, you've got all those really real, authentic testimonials. I haven't tried that, but that is my goal, is to try doing that for Fender in the next short while.
I feel like sorry, I always talk about small businesses, that's my world. Most of our small businesses, like, they're not segmenting their list, they're not segmenting their audiences, they're creating ads that are really long in their copy when like 2 lines is it. Actually, one important tip or trick that I don't think a lot of people are doing in the small business world is creating ads on Facebook and just showing them on Instagram as is. But it's not acceptable, because if you look at Instagram you get like literally like a line and a half of text and then it cuts it off. You don't really have the same, you don't have a headline like you do in Facebook ads. You don't have the subheader underneath that. There's so much that Instagram strips away, but so many companies are just, show it on Instagram too. Consider making a different ad for Instagram, and that's massive because the platform's so different.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Try different ones.
I think another trick that I've seen used and works pretty well is if you've got just a lot of still imagery, but your goal is to stop somebody as they're scrolling through their Instagram feed or their Facebook feed, put it into a slideshow so that you've got the images changing pretty quickly. Those autoplay on Facebook and Instagram, and then also make it vertical so that it takes up the whole screen and actually stops people in their tracks.
That's a good one. You have a question?
I was just going to ask, this is a little bit tangent here, but rest in peace, Gibson. But how do you use the power that you have now to perhaps go after those guitar customers? It's a different brand, and they might have had brand affiliation there, but now, they did.
Yeah, I mean, Gibson's still making guitars,
Right, sure.
so we're definitely targeting that audience, and we want them to do well because we want the guitar industry as a whole to do well. So we're not doing anything that kind of makes fun of them or tears them down, because we want them to do well. And we've always kind of had a shared audience. A lot of times if you own a Gibson, you own a Fender too, or you own a Fender amp that you play with your Gibson. So we're not necessarily taking advantage of it, but what I will say is by focusing on building up new players and putting out our product like Fender Play and really investing in more people learning guitar, that's going to help the industry as a whole, and that's kind of our answer to that.
I've got one more quick one, and it's a kind of trick perspective. Facebook's job is to keep people on the platform. Facebook wants to use engagers users engage on the platform by watching videos and interacting there on the platform. But what really, really works is when you take people off of Facebook to your website or to a great landing page. And so people forget all the time that really, at least a lot in our world, it's about getting people off of Facebook. And so even my own team members at times are like, oh, there's this new type of Facebook ad, we've got to try it, we've got to do it. And I'm like, not really, because a traffic campaign with a single image that has a link to get them off of Facebook onto the client's landing page or website oftentimes will outperform this new kind of fancy ad that Facebook has. And Facebook will promote that type of ad and get really excited about it, and everyone's got to do it, but it doesn't mean that that's actually a good thing. So stepping carefully into new types of ads is so important, and oftentimes aren't even needed.
It's a good one. And
Question is going off that, if you're using that sort of targeting, do you guys ever use the only show when you're on the Wi-Fi? Because then if you're sitting at your apartment, you're more likely to scroll, watch a full video, or input your payment info as opposed to standing in line in Whole Foods. I'm not really going to take the time to watch the video and click and pull out my card. Do you guys ever do that with those sort of?
I have tried it, and it didn't seem to make a difference in the results in any magnitude. It was a while ago, it was like a year or two ago, so I can't speak to like right now. But I do feel like because so many people have unlimited data plans, it's become so much more popular that, and so few people are like really in a bad cell signal when they're sitting there watching a video. That's, I don't know.
And then are you guys also like running certain hours, or I know it's more so like restaurant based if they have certain brunch items versus dinner, but are you just running it all hours, or do you block off a certain time and then shut it off when people are asleep, even though there's some people that are actually up at those times and maybe?
We know based on usage of our tuner app and a couple of our other products, when people are in the mindset to play guitar, to learn something new. For example, weekends are a really big time for people to be playing guitar. So we might weight some of our ads, especially if there are learning-based ads, a little bit more toward the weekends or toward evenings.
Yeah, and we tend to take the approach of letting Facebook's algorithm do its thing and let it run.
So you just run the whole time?
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Are there any new marketing technologies that you found yourself using or you see on the horizon that will change your approach to social marketing?
You mean like platforms or apps?
No, like new tools in your marketing. Like, for example, a phenomenon right now is de-anonymization of user sessions across device and like linking unique user IDs to the same person. That's like do you see any of those technologies already in your strategy, or is there anything that you've heard of an industry talk that you think your company will have to pay attention to?
I was at a conference recently that was talking about the concept of opting in for ads. And I know that a couple of the streaming services have tried this, and I've experienced it, where it will ask you, would you rather watch an ad about laundry detergent or cars? And you're kind of choosing the ad that you're going to be served, and I think you're naturally more engaged when you've had a say in what you're going to be shown. So I think that could have a lot of legs to it.
One of the things that is sort of parallel that comes to my mind is ManyChat and the use of automated responses. And it hasn't gone so well for a lot of clients so far. I feel like it could if people were more accepting of it and more ready for it, but people can smell a rat, for lack of a better way to say it, and it doesn't seem authentic and natural, and so for the reason it hasn't gone very well. There was a really good example on Google as well, where Google started these new types of ads where it was a click to call ad, and someone could literally just like touch the phone number, and all of a sudden the phone would ring to that business. But users weren't ready for that experience. They were expecting to click on a Google ad and go to a website, and so the technology was awesome. That, oh my gosh, our clients can receive phone calls right away, but it didn't really work because, yeah, sorry to be Debbie Downer about that. I'll think of a good one.
Last week there's an e-commerce show put on by Hawk Media Agency, and there was a session on Facebook bots. So what about your funnel and it leveraging Messenger? It's really email nurturing, but within, it's Messenger
Within the platform,
nurturing
yeah.
within the platform. Have you tried that?
Not too much It's kind of the same thing. I feel like it's there and it is exciting, but as a user of Facebook myself and the automated messages and things I see in my messenger, it feels a little bit like spam sometimes. And so I think as our minds change and as we get used to being okay with conversations with robots, that will evolve over time. And I think there's a lot of hope for it.
I heard a podcast a while ago, maybe some of you heard it too, about using bots for, it was a group of students who were entering college. So they were graduating seniors, and apparently there's a big drop-off in the amount of people who actually enroll in college in the fall versus the people who are admitted and commit to going. And a lot of it is little things, like their financial aid doesn't come through, or they didn't fill out their housing application in time, or all these little things happen. And so they took this set of incoming students and gave half of them access to this bot that they could text with questions. And it would remind them, you haven't submitted this thing yet. How do I do that? What do I do? And it really increased the actual enrollment rate significantly. So I could see us using bots and automated technology and ads for things like that, that we just really need help walking us through difficult steps.
Yeah, just to follow up, Growth Summit last year in San Diego, we're looking at a platform for AI. Just looking at what they were already doing with automated emails, that felt very authentic. But that's how, I come from 5 years like Google Translate, but for the enterprise. So there's a step where you go into machine learning, gets good enough to meet the brand voice and deliver authenticity. So is that on your radar currently, or is it like here, we'll get to it sometime?
It's on our radar because we know that one of the #1 barriers to learning guitar is, I don't even know where to start. I don't know if I want to play electric or acoustic, and I don't know if I want a Telecaster or a Stratocaster, and I don't know what size it should be. I have no idea.
And how about in the condo here? How would you start?
Right, exactly. I don't know if I need an amplifier. I don't know how loud it needs to be. So having something that could automated answer some of those questions and not make you feel dumb for asking those questions in the first place, which sometimes happens if you go into a guitar store, you get somebody who's condescending and like, well, you don't even know what you want, a sales associate, but if you've got a robot, you might be a little bit more comfortable asking that type of question.
And it becomes where like customer service and marketing are getting mixed into one, right? Because it's not really necessarily about marketing, but it is because you're trying to win them over, but it's become customer service. And I think that's kind of fascinating. Of course, it's on every business's radar. How to provide better service and save time and money.
We actually, I don't know if you recall, we actually had an event on bots a handful of months back. And I think one of the biggest things that we took out of that was even the panel was like, we don't completely understand it. They're still so young. We know they're big, people are using them, they can work, but we don't know what to do with it. And some people had some success, some people went, well, tried it, we're still trying. So it's coming. And
And I think where they had success, where the use cases I saw were really around e-commerce and scale.
Yeah.
So they're trying different channels. There's enough volume to try different. That's what's needed. That's where it started.
yeah. You got a question over here?
It was just a follow-up question. Do you remember that podcast for that? I'm just curious.
I think it was This American Life, and it was called The Summer Melt. But I can look it up in my phone after this and tell you for sure.
Did you have a question over here?
Oh yeah, it was about Facebook Messenger.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Yeah, we kind of
Okay.
touched on that, but I guess I have a question. What do you guys think about Reddit?
Yeah. On our roadmap very, very soon. We've got an active community of people who talk about guitar and talk about products, and then we've also got a lot of people on Reddit who are looking to learn something new. So it's definitely a fertile ground for us, both with advertising and on the organic side. In the last year, Reddit's done a lot to build out their brand profiles. There used to be a hard and fast rule you couldn't promote yourself at all. So it was really hard for a brand to be on there and not get shamed for being a brand. But now you can have a profile and a presence, and it's a little bit more of a friendly place. So we'll be on there soon.
Another question. I think as Mark had mentioned, marketing testimonials and ads, like Yelp. I definitely apply for great testimonials. Do you need permission from that person, or is it because they
attorney hat on. I'm just kidding. I don't know the legalities behind it, but I do know that when you write a review on Yelp, it's on the internet, it's public, and we've never run into a situation where someone has not wanted their review promoted because fundamentally they wouldn't write it if they didn't want it. Yeah.
So right, basically, like in the public sector space, people use it. I mean, that's restaurants do it all the time.
I think it depends on where they put that testimonial. For Fender Play, we have a closed Facebook group for Fender Play subscribers. So we wouldn't be able to take somebody's successful, video of learning something and put hate behind it because they thought they were sharing that in a closed group.
I get it.
The other thing to think about is with GDPR and then the new California privacy laws that are going to be coming into effect. You may want to just get permission to do that there because you have to be able to delete it pretty quickly, and you're just opening up a whole can of worms if you don't get approval for
I
that.
use testimonials like in memes and then I put them back in social. Like it's never occurred to me to use it in an ad. And if I don't know the person or I can't track them down, I'll just take their picture out and like Donna from Molina. But,
Oh yeah, the photo I think is a little bit.
Yeah, photo's different.
Yeah, so it's good that you do that.
So
And-
Mark, when you said you're using a testimonial, you're just using photos, right? You're just taking like maybe the parts of the words or.
Correct, just the text of the testimonial, and then usually, wedding venue case example, a photo of the venue. So you can see it's obviously a bride's testimonial. And to add a little bit to that, we don't of course copy the whole testimonial. Oftentimes we'll pull in a really, really good sentence, and we'll put quotes around it. The key is to put quotes around it. Like then all of a sudden it becomes a testimonial. And we actually did some A/B testing with like a person's name in the testimonial and not a testimonial, and it didn't really matter because it still seemed perceived as a testimonial. And my big thing being authentic and being true, of course I always want to use a real testimonial. Some people don't, like they've taken the strategy of not use real testimonials. It doesn't have any effect negatively, but yeah, do as you wish.
So Stephanie, you were just talking about GDPR and everything, and that was actually a question I was going to ask you. We're starting to run a little bit out of time, but I want to ask, how has the changes in privacy and the way you can use data, how has that changed the way you approach your ads? Or has it?
I don't know that it's changed the way that our ads are approached, but when we're collecting and running contests for UGC that we intend to then share back with our audience, even just organically, not necessarily just in the ad, but even as we're just going to take UGC and share it back, we have to make sure that that permission is explicit in all of the rules for both GDPR and then prepping for California as well.
Marketing?
Yeah, Facebook took away a lot of demographic or like targeting, specific, like income level and things like that, and we were really concerned about this because a lot of our clients' ads use income level to filter them out. But it actually wasn't nearly as bad as we thought it was going to be. It's kind of sad because we were able to tell clients, hey, we could target people who make $75,000 or more, and we can't do that anymore. So, but the end result was it was okay. It wasn't all that bad, even though we were sad to see that Facebook data go.
So it didn't affect your results, interesting. And I know ethnicity is no longer available either.
Yeah, that's such a weird conversation, right?
It is.
Like, I think it's just wrong to have.
Yeah.
Like, no.
You got time for one or two more quick questions if anybody else has it. Go ahead.
Metrics, what are some metrics that you don't have currently that you wish to God you really have?
I wish I could tell if they actually went into a store and purchased. And did it because they saw my ad. I don't know how to do that, but yeah.
Yep, very good.
Have you ever ported in offline data into the ad campaign? Side conversation, so. Like you can take offline sales data and put it into the platform.
Yes, it's tricky for us because we work with so many
Got it.
small
Yeah, it's like-
retailers who maybe aren't sophisticated in
Yep.
collecting all that.
Got it.
Wouldn't that also be like a store visits versus store optimization objective in terms of like people that are seeing the ad and then you can grab that and it will tell you in the area if they saw it in like some of your stores?
Yeah, definitely. For Fender specifically, we don't have Fender stores. We're in a bunch of independent retailers, so I think maybe it's possible
Like with
if
a
we were to
beacon
plug in all of those independent stores.
Yeah.
to answer your question, I think there's a lot of subjective, like sentiment, feeling type of metrics that we can't get from the data. Like, data tells us so many cool things about people, but there was one great podcast that I listened to where this guy, he says, I've got two twin 16-year-old daughters, and they are like night and day different, totally different, but they live in the same household, they have the same income, they go to the same school, like everything's about them the same, but to the father, he knows how different those two twin daughters are. And there's no way in the data now to really experience that, for example. So I don't specifically have a list of metrics that I like, but I know that because we're talking about it's human to human, there's things that are missing, and I think that they could be there with more information.
Thank you.
I can send that to social listening. You can send it. Got time for one more. Go ahead.
You mentioned working with a lot of smaller businesses who probably don't have the biggest budgets, and with Google, I tend to shy away. They're like, if they give me a small budget, that's like it's not worth a few hundred
Because
a
it
year.
takes forever to get.
Don't piecemeal it. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, for sure. And case by case with each client, but honestly, if they have a small budget, even though it'd be amazing for them to be on Google, if their click cost is $7, they only have $200 a month, like, no, of course not. You're gonna make them have a bad experience with Google, and the truth is, it's not Google's problem, it's the budget problem. Yeah.
Guys, that's all we got time for. Give it up for Mark and Stephanie. They were fantastic. I hope everybody learned a lot. I did. Don't forget our next event next Thursday, the tour de war, the book.
Actually, Tuesday.
Excuse me, Tuesday. I'm sorry, I said Thursday, it's Tuesday. Go ahead.
Let's give those one.
That's okay.
Sorry, I'm really tired. Like all of you. Anyway, so Tuesday, October 23rd, 7 to 9 at the Riveter. It's like We Work for Women. It's pretty cool. So come see Danny.
Please.
Hope to see you next week, guys. Thanks so much for coming. Everybody have a good day.